Therefore, rather than resisting being tied to a single lord, he sought to make the most of his work and generous strength. The perfect time had come to establish himself, because, alone, without the help of a companion, he could only rely on the strength of his arms. He wanted to educate his children. He didn't want them to be like him, a peasant, landless, and uneducated. Norobod had a reputation for evil, but perhaps the devil wasn't as ugly as he was made out to be. He was determined to stay on that rich estate, be a good servant, submit to servitude, and provide for his family. 9. Sonia. One day, Iulián was sawing wood to build a new storage shed when a very beautiful woman approached him and asked him coquettishly, "What's your name, mujik?" "Iulián," he replied dryly. Iulián looked older than his years. He was a friendly and attractive man, handsomely built, tall, with broad shoulder blades, thick black hair, and small blue eyes. "How many children do you have, peasant?" It was the first time a lady on the farm had approached him like that since he had been there, and he responded politely, in a manner that set him apart from the other employees. "I have 5, ma'am. Why do you ask me?" "I heard that your wife died as a result of childbirth." "Yes." "And was your child saved?" "Yes, he was saved." Not feeling encouraged to talk about Arma and its sad end, he tried to change the subject, turning his attention back to the saw. The woman insisted, "How old is your child?" Iulián was about to answer when a little girl came running up. "Entangled." The woman hugged the girl, and when she saw him, she asked her in a low voice, "Entangled, is this the big guy Grandpa told you about?" The little girl must have been less than 7 years old, the same size as Mr. Nicolau. Iulián, who was always tender with children, looked at the girl attentively, examining her, then handed her small wooden blocks prepared for her little Nicholas to play with. From that day on, the little girl would pass by, slipping past his watch, and go looking for the big man, her new friend. Later, Iulián learned that she was a granddaughter of Norobod and that beautiful woman, Sonia, his daughter-in-law. The two became friends. He would cut small blocks of wood and give them to her to play with. The peasant suspected that Mayra was the daughter of the poor girl who had died suddenly, and everyone on the farm avoided discussing the matter. Who could Mayra's father be? However, Sonia never missed an opportunity to approach him, and her presence made him uncomfortable. He felt captivated by her dark beauty. Sometimes, he noticed a strange glint in her gaze, and he began to avoid her. When she looked at him, he averted his eyes, but when she turned her back, he watched her sway, and it even seemed she felt his gaze. He tried to perform tasks that would keep him away from the house, escaping the pretty lady's provocative advances. Sonia, in turn, noticing her little daughter's preference for her father-in-law's employee, came up with the most absurd excuses and services to have him around. The beautiful Sonia had a provocative walk. When she passed, the peasants raised their eyebrows in disguise, fearing the presence of Alex, the boss's son. She acted this way deliberately, but no one suspected her preference for Iulián. Iulián, in turn, began to take an interest in her. Faced with such insistence, he eventually gave in to her charms. Slowly, she won his affection and awakened his masculine instincts. Despite his principles and the purity of his feelings, Iulián, before he knew it, was madly in love with Sonia. He began to improve his appearance. He trimmed his enormous beard and hair, which had previously been unkempt, straightened his mustache, and wore, even for work, his best gaiters and leather pants, brushing his sheepskin cap daily. The two began to flirt in secret. Masterfully, both in love, Un managed to hide her flirtation from prying eyes. Sonia was a renowned womanizer, but everyone seemed to ignore her behavior, fearful of retaliation from her boss's son and Norobod's wickedness. Quietly, however, her frivolous attitudes were the subject of whispers among the local gossips. 10. The farm ghost. The rye harvest was about to begin, and it was necessary to increase the number of employees for the great work. 9 more men were hired on the farm. The increase in employees overwhelmed the kitchen work and required the construction of new izbas. To ward off the cold, the peasants who lived on the farm would gather at night, after work, to sing and dance around bonfires. At the end of each harvest, the boss held a feast. He distributed kvass and kasha freely. Even the employees brought their own samovars. Everyone gathered in a large circle, got drunk, and danced until dawn. The women sang, and some, more daring, danced with the children. Sonia, on that party night, was more beautiful than ever. Since his Anna had passed away, Iulián had never had contact with another woman out of respect for her memory. He had grown accustomed to solitude, though he admired women. However, he felt deeply drawn to the beautiful Sonia. It wasn't love he felt, but rather a physical need, the warmth of someone, the caresses of a beautiful woman. Norobod's farm was a subject of much gossip among the local superstitious peasants. It was said that the ghost of a young woman, dressed in a blood-stained white nightgown and with her hair loose, haunted the farm. Many people had seen the ghost wandering through the fields around the house, and especially during the harvest festival. Her presence at this party was inevitable. No one doubted that she was the boss's unfortunate daughter, who, according to whispered rumors, had been beaten by her father. Many said that the Norobod's farm was haunted, a fact that frightened the employees. Fearful of the ghost, many abandoned their work and tools and never returned. Iulián had already drunk enough kvass. The drink had gone to his head, and now he was betting with his companions, who could dance until the end, holding his ground. The best dance was the one where, leaning on one knee, he extended one leg forward, then leaning on the other knee, doing the same movement, so that by crouching, he was almost sitting on the ground. The rhythm of the music increased according to the strength and agility with which the Russian peasants stretched their legs. Everyone danced frantically, and in a large circle, they leaned on each other's arms, singing and stretching their legs in the greatest uproar. Those who managed to remain standing were the winners, dancing until exhaustion. Others fell to the ground. Everyone was dancing drunkenly when, in the middle of the circle, the ghost of the farm appeared, paler than ever, his eyes sunken. His blond hair, golden as the wheat stalks shining in the sun, was loose and fell to his hips. Red blood stained his white shirt from his stomach, running down his legs. Everyone saw him, and the superstitious peasants ran away, unsure if they were seeing a vision of spirit or if the scene was simply the effect of the drink. But at that moment, the music fell silent. Murmurs could be heard. Some prayed aloud. But the effect of the apparition caused such panic among the people that the most lucid or brave or very drunk remained, while the others left, exorcising the ghost of the harvest and, frightened, leaving the farm forever. Norobod had consumed enough alcohol, but the sudden appearance had made him lucid, and he, more than anyone, knew the ghost that haunted his estate, frightening his employees. It was his daughter, his poor little girl who had died in childbirth. Old Norobod began to scream in despair, his conscience filled with remorse. Those present did not dare to approach. He screamed in despair, "My daughter, Matushka, forgive me, forgive me. Forgive your Papacha 14, I was blind. I didn't want to." Iulián continued to watch the scene, suspicious. His generous heart ached with pain as he saw the wicked Norobod given to remorse and despair, with no one or nothing able to relieve him. Norobod's wife approached. It was the first time Iulián had seen her outside the residence. Mrs. Norobod rarely went out. He observed her tired and sad face, perhaps due to her husband's misdeeds and mistreatment. "Come inside, husband. There's no point crying over spilt milk. Nothing will bring our daughter back. Come on." The old man followed her like a puppy, head down. He seemed to carry the world on his shoulders. Everything was silent. Someone approached, murmuring, "Yes, evil falls on those who commit it, and the judgment of our actions is right here where we receive it." It was dark, and Iulián noticed Sonia. Beside him, the husband, drunk, was already asleep. "What do you say, beautiful woman?" The woman's presence and perfume enveloped him, leaving him completely trapped by her charms, and the two took advantage of the darkness of the night, the absence of other people, sneaking away from there. It was the first time they had the opportunity to be alone, and the full range of passion contained within Iulián awakened their dormant instincts, and right there, hidden, they surrendered to such voluptuousness that they saw nothing else. Luckily for both of them, no one noticed them, and they gave themselves over to passion with total ardor. After their outburst, exhausted, they fell asleep, and when they opened their eyes, they saw, startled, the red of the first rays of sunlight, announcing that the day was beginning to dawn. They got up quickly, and each went home, as if nothing had happened. They became lovers, meeting in secret, taking advantage of every opportunity. The difficulty in meeting increased the pleasure and intensity of their passion. Sonia had already grown accustomed to this kind of adventure. Iulián possessed something that attracted her: his pure, unmaligned heart, his tender, sweet demeanor. Iulián, for his part, felt only physical attraction to the beautiful woman, and since he was alone, he surrendered himself to the seductive coquette, seeking to satisfy her every whim. This situation, however, did not make him happy. Rather, it embittered him, and so he turned to drink. He tried to escape her embrace, but it was as if she had a magnet imprisoning him. The more he tried to avoid her, the more he desired her body. That overwhelming fire dominated his body and mind. Days after the strange episode, Iulián and Sonia were alone. Now they could talk freely. "Sonia, what's the story of the ghost that appeared on the night of the Harvest Festival?" "Sad story. It gives me shivers just remembering poor Sasha, so young and so unhappy." Sonia began to tell Iulián the story she knew about her sister-in-law, Alex's sister, 14 Dad, and of the spiritual author, who had fallen madly in love with a young mujik. They began meeting in secret, and Sasha became pregnant. She didn't have the courage to reveal her pregnancy to anyone. Only her boyfriend knew about her situation, and he wanted to talk to Norobod, but she prevented him trying to find a solution. Knowing her father well, she didn't dare tell him what had happened. Her mother suspected something, but she avoided it. When her pregnancy became clear, her father became furious. Sasha chose death rather than reveal the name of the child's father, whom she loved and wanted to protect. She knew her father was capable of killing him. Norobod ordered the suspected peasants to be beaten, but no one spoke up. Unable to find the culprit, she turned all her fury against her daughter. Her insane act hastened the birth. Ignoring Mrs. Norobod's pleas, she cruelly beat the poor girl. The child was born, disappearing that same night without a trace. Days later, the poor girl died, a victim of her father's mistreatment. This tragedy deeply shook everyone. Alex, after this event, became bored, distancing himself from his family. He felt genuine affection for Sasha. Not even our little daughter, whom he named after his sister, consoled him for this immense loss. "I didn't move because Alex is weak, dependent on his father, and he forces me to live in this horrible environment. He himself cannot tolerate such a life. When he's not in the tavern getting drunk, he's traveling." Norobod seemed to regret his gesture. It's remorse that speaks loudest. When he gets drunk, he spends the night crying like a child, but he's still as evil as ever. He's a viper, Iulián. I've seen him commit the most horrendous and unimaginable acts against his family and his employees. The only one who doesn't seem to fear him is Sergel, who is just as wicked. It seems evil has brought them together. We all saw the girl's ghost that night. Doesn't anyone do anything to help her spirit? Iulián asked, eager to do something for those people so rich in money and so poor in happiness. They performed an exorcism, but it didn't work. It's revenge. That's why no superstitious worker, stops at the farm, which is ruining the crops and livestock. Everyone fears seeing the ghost. The izbas are empty. No one can live here. Neither the birds nor the livestock have peace in this haunted place. 11 Maria Alexandrovna, Norobod. Carrot while Sonia chatted. Iulián chopped the wood and stacked it neatly. Then they noticed Norobod's wife approaching. Sonia turned on her boots and entered the house as if nothing had happened. The two passed each other, exchanged a few words, and Alexandrovna moved closer to the big man, admiring his organization. His work was perfect. Iulián closely observed Mrs. Norobod's prematurely aged expression. It was pitiful, without a trace of joy. She, too, seemed like a ghost, haunting the house. Only she was made of flesh and blood. He sympathized with her, perhaps because he knew something of her suffering in this cause and pity. The peasant approached her affectionately, concerned about the volume of work and the desertion of the employees. "Forgive me, Mrs. Norobod, but some of the last employees hired this week have left, and I need to do something. There's a lot of work to be done, and the men left are few." Iulián's soft voice touched the woman's heart as she spoke to the big man for the first time. Iulián, encouraged by the attention he received, continued, "I know that rumors of the ghost will ruin work, and I worry, because it is very difficult to find a peasant who does not fear the appearance of the dead." Mrs. Norobod seemed to wake up from her world. upon hearing the servant's words. She realized, moved, that his interest was sincere and awakened in her desire to continue talking with that educated, honest, and hard-working peasant, a rare thing in that pile of angry and ignorant employees. "You're right, worker." The night of the harvest festival left no doubt, for she presented herself to everyone. After that episode, Norobod fell into deep sadness and was struck by nervous fever, a constant condition since our daughter's disappearance. Weakened, he abandons the farm. Unfortunately, Alex, my son, doesn't have his father's mettle to manage these lands. "I'm old enough to fight. We count on Sergei," Mrs. Norobod said, as if she found a friendly shoulder to lean on. "Sergei is loyal to us, but cruel in his dealings with men." Iulián, sincerely wanting to help her, was eager to talk about the ghost again, and took advantage of her bringing up the subject to learn more details about Mayra's birth. He asked her, lowering his voice in a confidential tone. "The ghost that haunts the farm and scares the workers is responsible for the loss of most of the employees. Have you realized that, Mrs. Norobod?" Iulián knew well that he was nursing an old wound, but he wanted to help her, and if he were afraid to broach that sensitive subject, he wouldn't be able to help them or confirm his long-held suspicions. His survival also depended on that work and that farm. The village was becoming poorer by the day, and life was very difficult for everyone. At least on that farm there was still a certain financial stability and long-term conditions of service. The mudjokes who had left servitude were in worse conditions than he. Two thick tears began to shine in the poor woman's eyes. Then more rolled down her face, and she finally let the tears flow copiously, breaking her resistance. That kind man touched the tired strings of her heart, his humility calming and moving her. Through tears, he asked, "What's your name, big guy?" "My name is Iulián Nikolai Sumarokov." "Iulián, this ghost that appears at night is my little daughter, who died almost 4 years ago. She visits me often. My husband sees her too, but he prefers not to talk about it and suffers greatly. I fear he might go mad. He turns to drink to quell the remorse in his heart. If this situation continues, the farm will soon be empty, Mrs. Norobod. Things here on the property are only going to get worse. Something needs to be done to help this spirit, don't you think?" Excited to have someone to talk to, she explained. "The village priest has celebrated several masses, with no concrete results. The truth is that his prayers seem to increase the apparitions, rather than calm the spirit of my poor Sasha." It was the first time Iulián had heard or pronounced the unfortunate girl's name. He repeated his name almost unconsciously. "Sasha, Sasha, yes, her name is Sasha, my poor little girl, so beautiful and loving. She was my treasure." The tears began to grow louder. Iulián tried to console her, and placed his thick, strong hand on her shoulder. That friendly gesture from someone who understood her pain did her a world of good. She snuggled closer to him, wrapping herself in the black shawl, feeling calmer. Sergei, cruel and jealous, stalked him furtively. The foreman didn't look kindly on Iulián's relationship with his employer and began to observe him more closely, sensing he had encountered a serious obstacle to his own hidden agenda. And from that day on, Iulián lived under the graces of Mrs. Norobod, but had also, without knowing it, gained a fierce enemy. Sergei tried to keep him away from home, taking him to distant plantations, but Mrs. Norobod required him to do small chores around the house, keeping him as close to the manor as possible. That afternoon, her husband was lucid, though very downcast, and his wife took the opportunity to talk to him. "Pyotr, why don't we bring Iulián, who is a good worker, to live in the nearby izba that has been uninhabited for so long? Wouldn't it be ideal to save him time on such long walks? That way, he could tend to the cattle and other livestock in the morning. What do you say?" Old Norobod scratched his long, gray beard. His small eyes had a self-interested, intense glint when something pleased him. The woman's argument was prudent and suited his plans to hire someone else to help with general chores. He liked Iulián, a modest and polite employee, as well as strong and willing. The idea appealed to him immediately. "You're right, Alexandrovna. I'll take action today." Satisfied with the answer, Alexandrovna Norobodviskia approached her husband, and for the first time since Sasha's death, he saw her smile and show a hint of joy. Fate was intent on bringing hearts together and uniting them through the unstoppable force of blood ties. Norobod was the absolute master of his lands, and Sergei was his right-hand man, with whom he discussed all the estate's problems. Sergei played the role of the beloved son, because Alex was a dead weight, a little Thai who enjoyed the good life, indulging in travel and parties. He didn't even value the possessions he would one day inherit, and didn't hesitate to squander them. Alex, his son, was a mere ornament on the estate, useful only for reciting poetry, playing the mandolin, and dancing. His presence hardly changed the situation on the farm, because Sergei, the faithful foreman, filled in for him. When Sergei was informed of his master's decision to bring Iulián to the izba near the house, jealousy and anger took hold of his heart and clouded his mind. Another family near the house is unnecessary. According to Norobod, Iulián is widowed and living without a wife. On top of this, he has 5 young children to care for. This will increase the expenses for the peasant, who has a heavy burden. How old are the big guy's kids? I don't know them, but they're all small, none of them fit to help with the work. We'll have to take care of 5 mouths and not enjoy their work. Who takes care of your children in your absence? Norobod asked, ready to bring the peasant into his estate. Maria Alexandrovna, always withdrawn and sad, barely spoke to him, and she was interested in Iulián. He wanted to please his wife and would not give up the servant, even against his foreman's wishes. They say she's had a maid since the time of the deceased. She's the one who takes care of the housework and her children in her absence. That's a good thing. Try to bring Iulián today so we can arrange his transfer to the izba near the enclosure. Sergei tried in vain to dissuade him, pointing out the disadvantages, but his arguments were futile. Norobod, when he wanted something, was stubborn and no one could change his mind. He wanted Iulián in that izba, and that was that. The foreman swallowed hard, his lips tightened, his expression hardening. Nervously, he went looking for Iulián, who was in a rye field that day, far from the house. The horses' hoofbeats at that hour startled the working peasants. They looked in alarm at Sergei's horse, who shouted, "Iulián, come. Norobod wants to speak to you." "With me? There's no other Iulián around here, is there?" he replied ironically. "It's you he's calling, big guy." "He is well. Don't delay, man, it's for today." Sergei walked around, examining the muzhik's work, after calling some of them to account because he was very displeased. Norobod's request filled him with resentment. He feared someone might take his place, his trust in the boss. He took out his displeasure by mistreating the poor employees, demanding more work from them. The peasants were relieved when they heard the horses' hoofbeats and Sergei's shouts in the distance. They gathered around Iulián to ask him what he had done to be called home unexpectedly.